Spaceship question 1. I like it already. Will spaceships always look unstreamlined, or are there future factors that could eventually push designs in that direction? For instance, cold plasma shielding, which would be more like a cloak of charged fog rather than a pseudo-solid barrier, seems like it would be more effective over a smooth surface area. I'm assuming that was the end of the question, but I'm assuming like a sphere. If you'd asked me this question, George, 6-7 months ago, then I would have said no. We are, in fact, unstreamlined is the way to go. Unstreamlined is you can make the case that there's so little of the universe requires streamlining. Virtually all of it is an area where streamlining is not needed because there's no stream, right? I mean, virtually all of the space in the universe, I mean virtually all of it, is open space, vacuum. So streamlining is just something that's used in those very, very small portion of the universe that has an atmosphere that's worth traveling through. So obviously the first people to visualize rocket ships and spaceships and so on assumed that they would be looking like rockets, because that's about as far as they thought about it. No one had ever been in space before. No one had ever had the experience of it. If you look at the von Braun animation that I love so much, I want to say it was 1957 or so, and Disney cooperated with von Braun on what a trip to space would look like. You end up in a delta-shaped aircraft, a very pointy-nosed aircraft with a very, very supersonic kind of a needle nose, and even the space station is relatively streamlined. The idea that you could just stick things on there, you could just stick a solar panel on this station, was beyond even von Braun. He had nothing to compare it to. So once we started going to space, we began to realize, okay, we don't have to do this. Mercury capsule is pretty streamlined. So's a Vostok capsule. They're essentially spheres. Ours are basically cones, but they're designed to go through the atmosphere. So we get some experience with that, and the next thing you know, we're up there long enough to realize, no, we can in fact hang a solar panel from this. I don't know if Salyut did it, but I know Skylab did. So going back to the early 70s when we started to get comfortable in space. So up until now, I would have said, no, absolutely. Anything that's going to go places from here to there is going to be unstreamlined because there's no reason to streamline it. Streamlining adds weight. It basically adds weight. If you've got a structure of something, we'll take an airplane, for example. If you had an airplane in the vacuum, you wouldn't need all of this weight of streamlining. You could just pull the surface layers off of the wings. You maybe want to keep the wings because that's where the fuel is. You could pull all of this stuff off of there. It wouldn't affect it at all. So there's no reason to be streamlined in space. And yet, George, I see Elon Musk's vehicle for the Mars mission, and they said this is not what the vehicle might look like. They said this is the vehicle. And the vehicle is uncannily like the artillery shell in that George Méliès film from the Earth to the Moon. Uncannily like it. It is essentially a round, rather a pointed, looks like an artillery shell, and it's got windows around the outside. And when I saw that, I thought to myself, my God, that is ugly. That is ugly, 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 ugly. It just looks retro. It looks bulky and dumb and stupid and primitive. But that could very well be the future. I mean, I think basically what Elon Musk is saying, yeah, we're not going to change vehicles. Look, he's done the work on it. He's put hundreds of millions of dollars towards, well, not hundreds, but certainly tens of millions of dollars towards studying this problem. And he has come to the conclusion that the best thing to do is to keep everybody in the same compartment, which means that you launch in the same vehicle that you land on Mars on, and then you come back and land on Earth with the same vehicle, and that vehicle needs to be streamlined because you have atmospheres on both ends, and it's a trip to the moon. Thank you very much, Wild Goose. So that's why suddenly I begin to realize that it doesn't necessarily have to be. It might, in fact, that you could make a case for streamlining. I never thought that I'd see anything. I'd never, ever in my life thought I'd see a rocket land on its tail. boy, there was a series of children's books called Tintin, and they're mostly big in Europe. I don't think they ever got very big in the United States. But one of them was Tintin Goes to the Moon, and he basically went in a rocket with the Thompson twins and some others and his little dog and so on. But this rocket looked almost exactly like a V2, except it had kind of bulbous 3 fins instead of 4, I think, and they had bulbous things at the bottom. And when this thing, and by the way, it was just painted red and white crosshatches on there. And this thing just lands on the moon, and then up it goes back into space, flies back to Earth, and then lands on its tail here on the Earth. And I remember thinking, probably when I first saw it, I thought it was fine. But from the time I got to be 14, 15, I said, that's absurd. No one is ever, 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 ever going to land a rocket the way the rocket took off. You can land a space shuttle, fly it back, but a rocket booster is gone. And then they did it. Then they did it. They did it. They landed a rocket, and it's exactly the way I thought it would never be. It's precisely the way I thought we would never see it. It is coming straight down in the same way it's going up, and it's falling. A little bit of a burn there to just keep it from going supersonic probably, and then at the very last second, lots of thrust and a big cloud of dust in there. It sits the same way it was when it took off. That happens. I've seen it, and you have too. It's absolutely amazing. So, all of the things that I used to be completely convinced were settled just because of economic reality. You don't need to streamline things in space. Turns out that this problem is more complex than I thought it was, and people who are working to actually build one of these things say, no, this is the way to go. And if he goes to Mars, if he just puts people around the moon next year, like he said he was going to, then I will get down and kowtow to the genius of this guy. Because he's an incredible man, really, and they all are, Bezos and so on, and Blue Origin and so on. So yes, it is possible that the future will be streamlined and push designs back to something that looks like from the 50s. Okay, I think we're going to do one more.